This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
In the headlines, just before his high-stakes meeting with Vladimir Putin in Alaska, U.S. President Donald Trump is warning of very severe consequences if there's no ceasefire in Ukraine. He's also hinting at a possible second summit, one that could bring Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky to the table. A major shift from Berlin. Germany's chancellor says Ukraine is willing to discuss territorial issues with Russia, but only under strict conditions. The remarks come after President Zelensky stopped short of ruling out such talks while stressing Ukraine's constitutional red lines. In India, a nationwide day of resistance. Farmers, workers, and students are demanding their government to stand firm against U.S. tariff threats amid a tense trade standoff with Washington. In Ecuador, President Daniel Noboa takes his fight to the streets, leading a dramatic march to the Constitutional Court. The Ecuadorian president is protesting the suspension of key security laws, a move he says undermines public safety as crime surges in the country. Japan announces its largest ever cannabis seizure. Nearly a ton of dried marijuana discovered at Tokyo port in a shipment from Vietnam, kept in cardboard boxes. Water security on the global agenda. South Africa launches the Global Outlook Council on Water Investments under G20, aiming to draw more funding for critical infrastructure across Africa. Trade, tech diplomacy, and stronger ties with Taiwan. After 8 years, the Taiwan Expo returns to the Philippines with a goal of boosting bilateral trade to billions of dollars. In the sports world, the UFC heads to the White House for America's 250th birthday. And in Canada, Hamilton honors NBA superstar Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with the city's highest tribute. I'm Jayne Codnita. Newsline World starts now. Just days before his high-stakes meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, U.S. President Donald Trump is already talking about a possible second summit, one that could bring Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky to the table, and warning Moscow of very severe consequences if no ceasefire is reached. Val Divinagracia reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump says there's a very good chance he will hold a second meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, this time possibly involving Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky. Speaking at an event at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., Trump said Friday's meeting with Putin in Anchorage, Alaska will focus on understanding, and I quote, where we are and what we're doing, end quote, in the ongoing war in Ukraine.
The first is I'm going to find out where we are and what we're doing. If the first one goes okay, we'll have a quick second one. I would like to do it almost immediately, and we'll have a quick second meeting between President Putin and President Zelensky and myself if they'd like to have me there.
Trump also warned there could be very severe consequences if Putin refuses to agree to a ceasefire.
Vladimir Putin does not agree to stop the war after your meeting on Friday.
Yes, they will. There will be very severe consequences, yes.
The president claimed he has stopped 5 wars in the past 6 months and insisted the Ukraine conflict would never have happened under his watch. He says his priority now is saving lives on both sides.
If we can save a lot of lives, it would be a great thing. Certain great things can be gained in the first. It's going to be a very important meeting. But it's setting the table for the second meeting. If the second meeting takes place, now there may be no second meeting, because if I feel that it's not appropriate to have it because I didn't get the answers that we have to have, then we're not going to have a second meeting.
Trump also used the occasion to take aim at conditions in the U.S. Capitol, saying its appearance sends a message to the world about America's leadership.
It's the same thing with the Capitol of the United States of America. If it's dirty and unsafe, it sets a bad tone for the rest of the world. So we're going to have this Capitol fixed up, safe, clean, and beautiful in a very short period of time.
Putin and Trump are set to meet in Alaska on Friday, with Trump hinting a follow-up summit could happen almost immediately if the first round goes well. Reporting for Newsline World, this is Valdivina Gracia, SMNA News.
U.S. President Donald Trump is aiming for a Ukraine ceasefire deal at his upcoming summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin, according to French President Emmanuel Macron. Franco Baranda reports.
A recent video call brought together Trump, European leaders, EU officials, and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky. Macron told reporters afterward that Trump indicated he wants to secure a ceasefire during his talks with Putin and that any territorial discussions involving Ukraine would happen with Kyiv at the table. He also stressed that Ukraine's allies, including the U.S., must continue supporting it until a permanent ceasefire is reached. Trump is also pushing for a trilateral meeting between himself, Putin, and Zelensky, possibly in Europe. The Alaska summit comes after Trump floated the idea of a land swap as a part of a peace deal, a proposal Zelensky has firmly rejected, citing Ukraine's constitution. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz said the leaders agreed to put more pressure on Putin if no progress is made. Russia, on the other hand, maintains it is open to a peaceful resolution but insists any agreement must address the roots of the conflict and acknowledge the current territorial realities. Moscow says it hopes the summit can mend strained relations and move forward on long-standing disputes. Trump has described the gathering as a feel-out meeting to see if the war can be settled. The Trump-Putin meet in Alaska will mark the first time Putin has set foot on America's soil since 2015. For God in my beloved Philippines, Franco Baranda, SMNI News.
A major shift in tone from Berlin. Germany's chancellor says Ukraine is willing to discuss territorial issues with Russia, setting strict conditions for any talks. This comes after President Volodymyr Zelensky stopped short of ruling out such negotiations, even as he reiterated Ukraine's constitutional red lines. MJ Mondihar reports.
At a joint press conference in Berlin, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was asked if his stance had changed on exchanging territory, specifically Donbass, for a ceasefire. Zelensky avoided a direct no, instead pointing to Ukraine's constitution, which he said protects the nation's territorial integrity and requires the people's will in any decision. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, however, said for the first time that Ukraine is prepared to discuss territorial issues with Moscow, but only under strict conditions. Those include robust security guarantees for Kyiv and a continued ability for Ukraine's forces to defend their sovereignty with long-term Western support. Merz offered no details on which countries might provide those guarantees or in what form, saying that would follow once a path to peace is opened. Press conference followed virtual talks between Merz, Zelensky, European leaders, and U.S. President Donald Trump earlier, ahead of Trump's summit with Vladimir Putin in Anchorage, Alaska. Russia says the meeting will be an opportunity to address all accumulated issues, including Ukraine, as diplomatic exchanges between Washington and Moscow continue after resuming earlier this year. For Godwebel of Philippines, I'm Jay Mondihar, SMNI News.
Nearly a ton of dried cannabis has been seized at Tokyo port after arriving from Vietnam, marking the biggest single drug confiscation ever recorded in Japan. 3 Vietnamese nationals have been taken into custody. More on this from Diana Flores.
The massive haul was discovered hidden inside 200 cardboard boxes on a cargo ship that had sailed from Da Nang, Vietnam. Customs officers detected irregularities when the shipment arrived in Tokyo in June. Investigators then tracked the cargo to a location in the northern Kanto region, where it was intercepted. Authorities say the delivery was meant for a company based in Osaka. At nearly 1,000 kilograms, the seizure surpasses last year's total nationwide nationwide cannabis confiscations of 452 kilograms. Officials suspect the case may be linked to a larger organized smuggling network. One of those arrested is a 51-year-old resident of Ibaraki Prefecture. Authorities say the case underscores the growing sophistication of drug trafficking methods and have pledged to intensify port inspections and work closely with overseas enforcement agencies to curb illegal imports. Diana Flores, your Global Citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
India and Singapore are taking their partnership to the next level, agreeing to boost cooperation in trade, connectivity, and digital technology. The agreement came during the third India-Singapore Ministerial Roundtable in New Delhi. Joy Tabanao has more.
Top ministers from both countries gathered in the Indian capital Wednesday for high-level talks. India's team included External Affairs Minister Subramaniam Jaishankar, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, and IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw. Singapore's 6-member delegation was led by Deputy Prime Minister and Trade Minister Gan Kim Yong, joined by senior ministers overseeing national security, foreign affairs, digital development, manpower, and transport. The Ministerial Roundtable, first held in 2022, is designed to strengthen economic and strategic ties. Singapore is already one of India's biggest trade and investment partners in ASEAN, accounting for nearly 28% of India's trade with the bloc last year. India's imports from Singapore reached $21.3 billion, while exports stood at $13 billion. It is also the leading source of foreign direct investment, or FDI, into India, with nearly $175 billion in cumulative inflows over the past 25 years, representing about 24% of total FDI. Joy Tabanao, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Up next, in India, a nationwide day of resistance. Farmers, workers, and students are demanding their government to stand firm against U.S. tariff threats amid a tense trade standoff with Washington. And water security on the global agenda. South Africa launches the Global Outlook Council on Water Investments under G20, aiming to draw more funding for critical infrastructure across Africa. Newsline World will be back after the break.
In 2005, Pastor Apollo C. Kibuloy founded the Sunshine Philippines movement. A mission rooted in love for nature and nation. It began as an environmental and humanitarian initiative to reforest Mount Apo. Once barren, now a thriving and beautiful place. Through his initiative, thousands of trees have been planted across the Philippines, bringing life and hope to communities. His advocacy, One Tree, One Nation, is also a movement that calls for unity in preserving the environment. Because every tree planted is a step towards unity, healing, and a greater future. country, one nation.
Hoy, magnanakaw! Tingnan! Pulis to! Hala, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Hoy, magnanakaw!
Magnanakaw! Magnanakaw!
Ano kayang gagawin ko? Ipamimigay ko yung konti para tumigil sila sa pag-iingay.
Pare, magnanakaw, namimigay ng pera.
Eto ang sayo.
Wow! Ang bait ng magnanakaw!
Eto naman sayo.
Kuya, yung
Eto
share ko! Sana
Huwag ka nang maingay. Eto pa. Tama na yan. Nakikipalato lang kayo eh. Huwag nang maingay. Diba? Konti lang pinamigay ko, mabait na ako. Tahimik na sila. Easy. Ngayon, pwede ko na tong suluhin.
Masaya ang mga tao, pero tama po ba ito? Di po ba ang nakikinabang sa magnanakaw ay kasabwat ng magnanakaw?
Ikaw, kinukonsenti mo ba ang legal na korupsyon?
Across India, anger is spilling off the streets of farmers and are taking streets demanding that they're pushed back as U.S. threats. The protests come amid a tense trade standoff with Washington. Fatima Nozil has the story.
In Delhi, the chants are sharp and the banners clear. India must not bow to U.S. trade pressure. Protesters gathered under the banner of a nationwide day of resistance called by a coalition of trade unions, including the Center of Indian Trade Unions and the All India Kisan Sabha. Their demand that India defends its right to trade with all nations and refuses to give in to America's terms.
One of the important areas where their imports will be dumped here in India are the dairy products mainly. And 8 crore of our Indian farmers are actually dairy farmers. And their milk and milk products, etc., they will be, become redundant in the Indian market itself.
The protests come after Washington announced plans for 50% tariffs on India over its purchase of Russian oil. 5 rounds of trade talks have failed to resolve the dispute. And while the demonstrations grow, reports say Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Trump could meet next month in New York on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly. Reporting, this has been Fatima Nozil, SMNI News.
Rising floodwaters in eastern India's Bihar state are forcing thousands from their homes this week. In Bhagalpur, the Ganga River has spilled well above the danger mark, leaving families and even livestock stranded. Prince Tripoli will give us more details.
In India's Bhagalpur city, Bihar state, the water is climbing fast, forcing more than 8,000 people out of low-lying villages. Some waded through waist-deep floodwater, others floated on makeshift rafts. Even motorcycles had to push their way across. Cattle trapped in the middle of the water as homes and shops went under.
गांव में पूरा पानी घुस चुका है। गांव में 4 से 5 फीट पानी प्रवेश कर चुकी है। हम लोग गांव छोड़कर पलायन हो रहे हैं। अपना घर-द्वार छोड़कर अभी ऊंचे स्थान पर जा रहे हैं।
The Ganga River here is now flowing 80 centimeters above the danger mark, just 9 centimeters shy of an all-time record. 12 districts are under severe flood conditions, impacting more than 1.7 million people.
खाने पीने के लिए नहीं मिलता है, डूबा भसा हो गया है यहाँ पर, कुछ नहीं है यहाँ पर, चरा फिरा कुछ नहीं मिल रहा है, ऐसे रोड पर ढनक रहे हैं.
Rescue crews are moving families and livestock out in inflatable boats. More than 8,000 residents have been rescued.
बाढ़ की स्थिति पर 35 प्रखंड में 17 पंचायत में भयावह हो चुकी है। सभी घरों में पानी 3 से 4 फुट पानी भर गया है। लोग पलायन कर रहे हैं और ऐसे समय में सहायता की जरूरत है बाढ़ पीड़ितों की, जो कि अविलंब करनी चाहिए। पन्नी की सहायता सामुदायिक किचन सरकार के द्वारा चलाई जा रही है और सब भी जो व्यवस्था है, घर लोगों का घर गिर रहा है, पशु चारा की व्यवस्था बहुत जरूरी है। मेडिकल टीम की ज़रूरत है जो दीरा में जाए और बाढ़ पीड़ितों का सेवा करे।
Heavy rains upstream in neighboring Nepal are pushing river levels even higher, keeping Bihar's flood alerts in place, but leaving rescue teams bracing for more evacuations. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Prince Tripoli, your citizen correspondent.
In Brazil, President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva is firing back at steep new U.S. tariffs, rolling out billions in relief for industries caught in the crossfire and rallying global allies to push back. Here's my report. Speaking at the presidential palace in Brasilia, Lula signed the Provisional Measure Sovereign Brazil, a plan worth about 30 billion reais or $6 billion in credit lines for companies hit by tariffs of up to 50% since August 6th. It also extends tax suspensions, eases export credit rules, and changes government buying policies.
Agora, a única coisa que nós precisamos exigir é que a soberania nossa é intocável. Ninguém dê palpite nas coisas que nós temos que fazer.
Lula added that Brazil should focus on future opportunities rather than dwelling on losses. The president disclosed ongoing talks with leaders of other nations facing similar U.S. trade measures, including India, China, Russia, and members of the European Union, with the aim of coordinating a collective response. He accused Washington of undermining global trade rules and pointed out Brazil's commerce with BRICS partners now exceeds U.S. trade. However, Lula reaffirmed willingness to engage in negotiations provided national sovereignty is respected. The tariffs followed a national emergency declaration by U.S. President Donald Trump, who alleged that Brazil's policies posed a threat to U.S. security, foreign policy, and economic interests, and accused the Brazilian government of politically targeting ex-President Jair Bolsonaro. Days of relentless rain have left streets in the state of Mexico looking more like rivers, homes submerged, vehicles swamped, and entire neighborhoods cut off. In this municipality, knee-deep floodwater mixed with overflowing sewage has turned daily life into a slow, messy struggle. City officials say 16 neighborhoods have been hit, with more than 300 homes damaged. Many residents couldn't enter their properties for days, and frustration is growing in the affected communities. Despite municipal government deploying cleanup crews, the floodwaters have receded only slightly. Mayor Adolfo Cerqueda Rebollo is urging patience, promising help will arrive as soon as possible. For now, families remain surrounded by floodwater, a struggle in an area where flooding has become a year-after-year ordeal. From Spain to Greece and Montenegro, wildfires are wreaking havoc across southern Europe. Thousands have been forced to flee their homes as extreme heat and strong winds fan the flames. Sara Santos for this report.
In the Galicia region, Spain's military emergency unit has been deployed to fight the country's worst wildfire of the year. The blaze in Orense has burned more than 3,000 hectares since Friday, prompting an emergency alert due to its proximity to homes. Around 1,000 military firefighters are battling flames nationwide as a severe heat wave enters its second week. In southern Patras in Greece, a raging wildfire swept through the coastal village of Kaminia. Lifeguards rescued residents by boat as temperatures hit 40 degrees Celsius, with more than 20 major fires burning across the country. Nearly 5,000 firefighters and 33 aircraft have been mobilized. Meanwhile, in Cucci, Montenegro, fires that were thought to be under control reignited overnight, threatening nearby villages. The defense ministry says one soldier was killed and another seriously injured while battling the flames. Across the region, tens of thousands of residents have been evacuated, with officials warning the danger isn't over as the heat wave continues. Reporting, Sara Santos, SMNI News.
Typhoon Poro slammed into Fujian's Jiangpu County for just after midnight on Thursday. Its second landfall in less than 24 hours, packing winds near 30 meters per second. The storm first tore through Taiwan's Taitung County Wednesday before sweeping into southern China, drenching Guangdong, Guangxi, Hunan, and Guizhou with pounding rain and fierce gusts. In Xiamen, wind speeds hit near 30 meters per second, flooding streets with more than 50 millimeters of rain in the day. Power outages followed as over 660 emergency workers scrambled to restore service. Farther south in Xixi City, seaside attractions were shut down and more than 7,200 people were evacuated to safety before the storm struck. South Africa is putting water security high on the global agenda. President Cyril Ramaphosa has launched the Global Outlook Council on Water Investments under the country's G20 presidency, unveiling the plan at the Africa Water Investment Summit in Cape Town. Justine Nazario for the details.
The new council expands on the African Union's 2021 Africa Water Investment Program, this time aiming to pull in more international and regional funding for critical water infrastructure across the continent.
We are bringing Africa and international partners together and calling on investors to heed the call to invest in water.
A high-level governing body made up of national leaders will steer the initiative, tracking progress, aligning investment strategies, and pushing for climate-resilient water solutions. By putting water at the center of investment talks, South Africa hopes to boost the continent's role in shaping the global development agenda and ensure a more secure water future for all. Justine Nazario, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
After 8 years, the Taiwan Expo is making a grand comeback to the Philippines, bringing cutting-edge technology, innovative products, and renewed momentum for stronger economic and cultural ties between Taiwan and the country. This report from Jason Rubrico.
The Taiwan International Trade Administration and the Taiwan External Trade Development Council are gearing up for the return of the Taiwan Expo to the Philippines. The three-day event will run from the 17th to the 19th of September this year at the SMX Convention Center in Pasay City. Organizers say the comeback is a strategic move, with the Philippines ranked among the fastest-growing markets in ASEAN, driven by a population of over 100 million.
The reason for returning to Philippines because we still keep watching the Philippine market is booming, and especially in the South ASEAN region area. Philippines is a growing country. In terms of the population, I think now it's the second largest, just a little bit behind Indonesia. Already more than 100 million population. So this is the market we cannot ignore and forget.
The expo will feature more than 140 Taiwanese companies showcasing innovative products under 5 major themes: agritech and aquatech, smart technologies, health and wellness, green and sustainability, and intelligent style. The event aims to open more opportunities for business partnerships between the two countries.
In view of this Taiwan Expo event, we hope can get more Taiwan company to display, showcase their suitable items in Philippines. And from Philippine side, we hope can get more Philippine enterprise buyers to find suitable Taiwan items and make useful and important cooperation to improve both sides, industry and economic. This is what we expect.
Among the highlights are Taiwan's advanced agricultural and aquaculture technologies designed to improve production and quality in the agriculture and fisheries sector. Wang noted that Taiwan and the Philippines share similar challenges such as climate change and strong typhoons, making collaboration in these industries vital. Currently, Taiwan-Philippines bilateral trade stands at more than $5 billion. Taitra hopes that with the return of the expo, the figure will bounce back to its former $7 billion level or even higher.
Taiwan and Philippines bilateral trade more than $5 billion usually. It's up and down sometimes due to the economic situation and so many this international circumstance. But after this 2023 and 24, there's a big, we can say like not big improvement. So this time we come to make this Taiwan Expo. We hope can come back to like as usual, $7 billion like before and even more.
Organizers are confident that the comeback of the Taiwan Expo will not only boost trade but also strengthen cooperation and mutual understanding between the two nations in business, culture, and the future of both economies. For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SMNI News.
Coming up in Ecuador, President Daniel Noboa takes his fight to the streets, leading a dramatic march to the Constitutional Court. The Ecuadorian president is protesting the suspension of key security laws, a move he says undermines public safety as crime surges in the country. And in the sports world, the UFC heads to the White House for America's 250th birthday. And in Canada, Hamilton honors NBA superstar Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with the city's highest tribute. Stay tuned, Newsline World will return.
Matunog ngayon ang salitang impeachment sa Pilipinas dahil sa nakambang impeachment trial kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Pero ang tanong ng taong bayan, ito ba ay para sa interes ng bansa o para sa politikal na motibo lamang? Sa ilalim ng saligang batas, may mga opisyal ng pamahalaan na maaring tanggalin sa pwesto sa pamamagitan ng impeachment. Kabilang dito ang Pangulo, Pangalawang Pangulo, mga mahistrado ng Korte Suprema, mga miyembro ng Constitutional Commission at ang Ombudsman. Maaaring ma-impeach ang mga nabanggit na opisyal dahil sa matinding paglabag sa konstitusyon, pagtataksil sa bayan, panunuhol, katiwalian, mabibigat na krimen o pagtataksil sa tiwala ng publiko. Sa kasaysayan ng Pilipinas, ilang matataas na opisyal na ang humarap sa impeachment trial. Noong taong 2000, si Pangulong Joseph Erap Estrada ang unang Pangulo ng bansa na humarap sa isang impeachment trial. Taong 2011 naman, si Ombudsman Merceditas Gutierrez ay naharap din sa impeachment dahil sa umano'y kapabayaan sa pag-aksyon sa mga kaso ng katiwalian. Hindi na siya humarap sa pagdinig sapagkat bago pa magsimula ang impeachment trial ay nagbitiw na ito sa pwesto. Noong 2012, si Chief Justice Renato Corona ay napatalsik naman mula sa Korte Suprema sa unang pagkakataon na impeach ang isang Chief Justice matapos mapatunayang hindi niya idineklara ang kanyang Statement of Assets, Liabilities, and Net Worth o SALN ng buo. Ano nga ba ang proseso ng pag-impeach sa isang mataas na opisyal batay sa konstitusyon? Maaaring magsampa ng reklamo ang isang miyembro ng Kongreso o isang mamamayan basta may sumusuportang kongresista. Kapag 1/3 ng mga miyembro ng Kamara ang sumang-ayon, tuloy na agad ang proseso ng impeachment sa Senado. Sa sandaling maaprubahan ito ng House of Representatives, binubuo na ang Articles of Impeachment, isang dokumento na naglalaman ng mga aligasyon o batayan para sa impeachment. Pero tandaan, walang impeachment proceedings na maaaring isampa laban sa parehong opisyal ng higit sa isang beses sa loob ng isang taon. Ang Senado naman ang magsisilbing impeachment court kapag ang Pangulo ang nililitis, ang punong mahistrado ang namumuno, ngunit hindi bumoboto. 2/3 ng mga senador ang kailangan para hatulan ang opisyal. Anong parusa? Pagkakatanggal sa pwesto at diskwalifikasyon na makabalik sa gobyerno. Ang impeachment ay hindi simpleng usapin sa politika. Isa itong seryosong proseso na maaaring makaapekto sa kinabukasan ng bansa. Kaya sa panahong puno ng ingay at intriga, kinakailangan nating maging mapanuri, patas at maging makabayan. Bantayan natin ang katotohanan, pumanig tayo sa hustisya at higit sa lahat, unahin natin ang interes ng sambayanang Pilipino.
In Ecuador, President Daniel Noboa has taken to the streets, leading a dramatic march to confront the Constitutional Court following its provisional suspension of vital security legislation, a move that raises fresh doubts about judicial independence and governance amid rising crime. This report from Jayne Codnita.
Carrying a megaphone and flanked by supporters waving Ecuadorian flags, President Daniel Noboa marched to Quito's Constitutional Court on Tuesday, an unprecedented show of protest after the court halted parts of 3 newly enacted security laws deemed essential by his administration. The provisional suspension affects provisions like immunity for security forces, mandatory telecom data sharing, and revised bank regulations. Footage captures Noboa and his supporters approaching the court with large banners bearing judges' photos labeled, "These are the judges who are stealing our peace." Protesters chanted corrupt judges to prison, while police maintained order around the court grounds. The court swiftly condemned the tactic, warned the public showcase of judges' identities not only endangers their safety, but also undermines the separation of powers. Public hearings to evaluate the constitutionality of the suspended laws are set to begin next week. Noboa maintains the measures are central to combating organized gangs. Critics accuse him of pressurizing the judiciary and threatening democratic norms. A United Nations justice official echoed those concerns, urging authorities to protect judicial autonomy. As public hearings approach, Ecuador braces for a showdown between security-driven reforms and judicial safeguards, testing the resilience of its democratic institutions. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Jayne Codnita, SMNA News.
Along Taiwan's southern coast, the Army has carried out its first live-fire test of the advanced TO-2B anti-armor missile as part of its annual Tianma exercise in the southern county of Pingtung. M1167 Humvees lined the shoreline, launching multiple missiles toward maritime targets roughly 2,000 meters offshore. Army officials say 27 of the U.S.-made TO-2B missiles were fired, all reportedly hitting their marks, along with nearly 100 of the earlier TO-2A variant. The exercise tested the TO-2B's extended range of more than 4.5 kilometers, as well as its ability to destroy armored vehicles, fortified positions, and vessels in amphibious operations. Military leaders say this year's drills provide a crucial assessment of Taiwan's ability to counter threats approaching from the sea. Commuting on Metro Manila's train lines is about to get faster, easier, and far less of a hassle, especially for students, senior citizens, and persons with disabilities, thanks to new measures rolled out by the Department of Transportation. Jason Rubrico has more on this.
Transportation Secretary Vince Dizon says commuters entitled to the 50% discounts, students, seniors, and persons with disabilities or PWDs, no longer need to fill out forms at LRT1, LRT2, and MRT3. Showing a valid ID is now enough to claim the fare cut.
Seniors, PWDs, and students in all the lines, LRT1, 2, and MRT3, wala nang kailangang fill-upan. Papakita lang nila yung kanilang mga ID, senior citizen, PWD, at student ID, at dire-diretso na sila. So napakalaking ginawa nito para sa mga beneficiaries natin ng discounts, no?
The transport chief added that the Department of Transportation, or DOTR, will work with the Commission on Audit to digitize the process of gathering passenger information for discounted fares. Dizon also announced that personalized student beep cards will be available starting September, in line with the President's push to make student travel faster and more convenient. With a student beep card, students can skip long queues to get their 50% discount on all train lines. The card will bear the student's name and will be valid for 1 year.
One time. I-renew mo lang yan after every school year. Meaning, after 1 year, hindi nagagana ito. Kailangan mong bumalik at kailangan mong ipakita ulit yung iyong valid student ID for the next year para makakuha ka ulit ng panibagong student beep card.
For senior citizens and PWDs, white beep cards with automatic 50% discounts will also be available. Starting September, these can be printed and issued instantly at ticket counters, unlike the previous 5 to 7 day waiting period. To meet demand, an additional 300,000 regular beep cards will be distributed to passengers next week.
Sinimulan na namin mag-deliver ng beep card sa tatlong linya, LRT1, LRT2, and MRT3. So makukumpleto namin ng 300,000 pieces within the week. We expect normal na ang beep card distribution. So walang shortage.
Dapat by next week, wala na tayong shortage ng beep cards.
The transport chief also warned syndicates hoarding beep cards and reselling them above the suggested retail price, saying the DOTR is coordinating with the national police to crack down on such illegal activities.
Winawarningan ko na sila. Kung sino man ang mga ginagamit nitong mga sindikatong to, pasensyahan tayo kasi pag kayo nahuli, kulong kayo. Kulong kayo immediately.
The DOTR will also work with online selling platforms to shut down groups involved in the unauthorized sale of beep cards. For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Trubrico, SM9 News.
In a major step to reinforce judicial independence, the Supreme Court is now fully in control of its own budget. President Bongbong Marcos Jr. signed a landmark law yesterday aimed at strengthening the country's justice system. Jayne Sancho for this report.
Chief Justice Alexander Gesmundo and Supreme Court's Associate Justices welcomed the signing of Republic Act No. 12233, also known as the Judiciary Fiscal Autonomy Act, on August 14, 2025. The law gives the judiciary full authority to manage its own funds, reinforcing its role as an independent and co-equal branch of government. Under the new law, the Supreme Court can submit its original budget proposal directly to Congress as part of the National Expenditure Program, prepared by the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM. The legislation also ensures that the judiciary monthly cash requirements, equivalent to 1/12 of its total budget, will be automatically released by the DBM without the need for extra approvals. Finally, the law strengthens the Supreme Court's power to address staffing shortages, requiring the DBM to act within 120 days on requests for newly created positions to the Notice of Organization, Staffing, and Compensation Action, or NOSCA. With these measures in place, the judiciary can now focus on its core mission, delivering justice efficiently and independently. Reporting for Newsline World, this has been Jayne Sancho, SM9 News.
From royal comebacks to ogre delays, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle land a fresh Netflix deal with more creative freedom, while Shrek fans will have to wait a bit longer for the Green Giant's return to the big screen. Here's Andrea Santos for Showbiz News.
Amid public speculations that British royals Prince Harry and Meghan Markle would no longer return to the spotlight, the couple has recently signed a new deal with Netflix. This time, a more limited agreement to the streaming giant. In 2020, they first signed a multi-year exclusive deal with Netflix under their production company, Archwell Productions, which is set to expire in September 2025. The deal was reportedly worth $100 million. That agreement aimed to share their projects and documentaries with a global audience. Some of their notable titles including Harry and Meghan, Live to Lead, Heart of Invictus, Polo, and the lifestyle series with Love Meghan. Now under a first-look deal, Netflix gets first dibs on future projects while the couple gains more creative freedom. Meghan says she's excited with plans to feature her as ever lifestyle brand. Big news from the swamp. Shrek and the gang are making us wait a little longer. Universal Pictures and DreamWorks Animation have pushed back the release of Shrek 5 to June 30, 2027. The move gives the ogres big comeback some breathing room, avoiding a clash with Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse, originally both set for summer 2026. The Shrek franchise first hit theaters in 2001, winning over audiences with its fairy tale twists, heartwarming themes, and cheeky humor for kids and grown-ups alike. This time, the voices behind the magic are back. Mike Myers as Shrek, Cameron Diaz as Fiona, Eddie Murphy as Donkey, plus Zendaya joining as their daughter, Felicia. So, will the wait be worth it? Fans will have to hang tight, but with this cast, it's looking like a happily ever after worth waiting for. And that's our latest international showbiz news. This is Elisa Torres, your citizen correspondent, bringing you the latest showbuzz.
And for a sports update, it's a fight night like no other. The UFC is stepping into one of the most famous backyards in the world, and it's all set for America's 250th birthday. Meanwhile, Hamilton celebrates its hometown hero, honoring NBA superstar Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with the city's highest tribute. Here's Carlo De La Peña for sports news.
Dana White has confirmed a 4th of July fight card in 2026 on the South Lawn, part of the celebration for the nation's 250th birthday. The idea was proposed by President Donald Trump, who envisions 20,000 fans packing the historic grounds for the spectacle. This announcement comes right after the UFC secured its most lucrative media deal, yet a 7-year agreement worth $1.1 billion annually with Paramount. Starting in 2026, all UFC events will stream on Paramount Plus, with major cards airing live on CBS. The partnership follows an $8 billion merger between Skydance and Paramount, with new chairman and CEO David Ellison aiming to expand UFC's global reach. White says the White House fight is locked in and will be a landmark moment in the sport's history. In other sports news, Hamilton rolled out the honors for NBA superstar Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, awarding him the first key to the city in over 2 decades and announcing that a local street will be renamed in his honor. The Oklahoma City Thunder guard delivered a historic season, topping the league in scoring with 32.7 points per game, winning both the NBA MVP and Finals MVP, and leading his team to its first ever championship. In an emotional speech, Gilgeous-Alexander credited Hamilton's grit, determination, and pride for shaping his success, saying he carries the city's spirit everywhere he goes. This summer, he signed a 4-year, $285 million Supermax contract extension, securing his future as one of basketball's biggest stars. Reporting for Newsline World, this is Carlo De La Peña, bringing you the latest sports news.
It's the kind of detour no traveler expects, much less in one of the coldest, most isolated places on Earth. Tonight, a young American pilot finds himself struck in Antarctica after an emergency landing turned into a weeks-long standoff with weather, red tape, and the elements. Chuck Corbo tells us more.
One of the most remote corners of the planet, a young American pilot's dream adventure has turned into an unexpected weeks-long ordeal. 20-year-old Ethan Guo, an influencer and aviation enthusiast, has been stranded on King George Island in Antarctica since June 28. His trouble began after Chilean authorities accused him of landing his small Cessna at a military base without permission. Guo insists it wasn't a daredevil stunt. He says an emergency forced him down. His navigational instruments failed. Ice built up on the aircraft, and he lost contact with air traffic control. A Chilean court has now dropped the case on the condition that Guo donates $30,000 to Children's Cancer Charity and stays out of the country for 3 years. But while he's free to go, the weather isn't cooperating. Officials say his plane is missing key safety gear, may not have enough fuel, and can't safely cross the rough Drake Passage right now. Guo insists the Cessna is already fueled for the trip. For now, he's making the Chilean Air Force barracks his temporary home, waiting for the all clear to leave the icy island. From the looks of his social media, Guo is still keeping his spirits high, even as his Antarctic layover stretches on. Reporting for Newsline World, Cha Corbo, SMNI News.
Three brothers, one boat, 9,000 miles of open ocean. The MacLean siblings are braving the Pacific's relentless waves, chasing a world record and a mission to deliver clean water to tens of thousands in Madagascar. Here's Jayne Nazario for the story.
Three adventurous Scottish brothers are battling the Pacific's wild waters on a 9,000-mile rowing challenge, not just to set a world record, but to change lives in Madagascar. Ewan, Jamie, and Lachlan MacLean are on a mission that blends family grit with humanitarian heart. Spending over 100 days in a cramped boat would be daunting for most, but for the MacLean brothers, it's a powerful symbol of their bond and determination. Their goal? To become the fastest three-man team to row unsupported across the Pacific Ocean while raising £1 million for clean water projects. This isn't their first oceanic feat. In 2020, the brothers conquered the Atlantic in just 35 days, a record-breaking journey that sparked their ongoing fight for safe drinking water. Through their non-profit, the MacLean Foundation, they work with local partners in Madagascar to build wells in communities where only 14% of residents have access to clean water. The funds from this latest challenge will support well construction in Ambo Himanarina, bringing safe drinking water to more than 40,000 people. For the MacLeans, every stroke is more than a push toward the record. It's a lifeline for communities in need. And that is our good news. Jayne Nazario, your citizen correspondent, reporting for Newsline World.
Whatever is right, that is where we should always side with. And that's all for this edition of Newsline World. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Jayne Codnita. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.